Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys 1/6 scale Obi-Wan Kenobi series figure unboxing and review. Today we're taking a look at the 501st Legion Clone Trooper. Now I got mine at a discount from Pop Collectibles. As always, do your own research, make sure you are comfortable before buying. I have popped the link to their site in the description below, along with the discount code Justin's Collection, for 5% off your order if you do decide to buy from them. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, so you're notified as soon as a brand new Hot Toys Star Wars figure review goes live on the channel. As for the box art, it is pretty straightforward. We've got an image of the figure himself front and center, a metallic foil Star Wars logo, and then another shot of the clone trooper on the glossy wraparound banner. They have gone with red for the accent color, which is consistent with the rest of the figures in the Kenobi series line. In the background, I think that's supposed to be the Jedi Temple. On the side of the box, the continuation of the wraparound banner, featuring some more figure photography of the figure himself. And then around the back, all of the boring stuff: warnings, legal information, and Hot Toy store locations. Hot Toys, sometimes you're just not very subtle with the cross-sell. Picturing 3 501st Legion clone troopers on the slipcover, that's just them trying to insinuate that you need to pick up 3 501st clones. 2, maybe, but for me, 3 is a bit of a stretch. We'll just have to wait and see. It all depends on how good this guy is. Now, for those thinking, hang on a second, didn't Hot Toys already make a 501st clone trooper? They did. It was actually the first clone trooper they ever made. But up until the Disney era of Star Wars, all of the clones that we saw on screen were CGI. Whereas with this guy, he's based specifically off the practical suit of armor that was worn by actors on set of the Kenobi series. So technically speaking, all of this stuff should be brand new and specific to him. We will have to find out if that's indeed the case a little bit later. First, in-hand impressions. So far so good, except for the chest plate, which is giving me old school Sideshow Clone Trooper vibes. It feels a little bit loosey-goosey. What we are going to do now, though, is get all of his accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Starting off with the display base first. But before we do, can I just say, what a sad little showing when it comes to accessories. We don't get any blast effects, and we get significantly less hands compared to other clone troopers. The display base is as generic as they come. It's just the typical Hot Toys Star Wars rectangular base. This could literally be anything. It could be the inside of a Star Destroyer, a Venator, or a Republic command post. There is some added silver dry brushing on the edges this time, which I do like. For the nameplate, it says Star Wars 501st Legion Clone Trooper etched into the surface, and up top, an adjustable crotch grabber. The smallest accessory award goes to the teeny tiny thermal detonator. The red dot is a nice touch, and there's some texture on the activation switch. There are washers in the crevices, and even some teeny tiny little dots sculpted in around the front. If you're wondering which hand you should use to have him hold this, the trigger finger hand is probably the one I'm going to use. The mold costs for this guy must be astronomical. Brand new body, brand new armor, and brand new weapons. Neither of these have been reused from any previous clone troopers. Compared to the old school DC-15S, it's a night and day difference. The new one is skinnier, the handle is a lot more manageable, thank goodness, and there's just more detail on the surface with these little greebly bits and pieces. The iron sights are still made of rubbery plastic, but this time it's painted in black, with some selective silver chipping here and there, just to make it look like it's a real practical thing that was used on set and now has been shrunk down to 1/6 scale. They did solve the issue with the stock not working by gluing it in position, so now this thing doesn't actually move at all. Everything they did differently with the DC-15S blaster carbine is also true for the much larger DC-15 blaster rifle. It's just a more intricate design. There's added surface detail, it's closer to black than it is gunmetal, and they've done away with the messy silver dry brushing in favor of the selective silver chipping, which to me looks way more believable. The entire rifle is slightly shorter than the CGI one, but I don't think that takes anything away from the presence. The only thing I reckon I'm going to miss from the older design is the little bit of discoloration on the front of the barrel. And lastly, a pretty basic array of hands. Maybe they wanted to save mold costs with this guy, and as they continue to make more and more live action clones, they can slowly but surely add in new gestures. There is more sculpt work and detail for like the padded sections on the inside of the palm, and there's even some ribbing, as compared to normal clones where the gloves are completely smooth. The armor plating is done in high gloss, so we do get one trigger finger hand for either side. A splayed out finger hand for the left, you can see the detail a lot more easily with this hand, and a closed fist for the right. Pairs would have been nice, Hot Toys. Maybe going forward you can literally just flip the sculpt and then you can give us two of each hand. You know, one for either side. I think it makes sense to have a left and right for each gesture. And lastly, two open palm hands already installed on him out of the box. What we are going to do now though is get the 501st Legion Clone Trooper himself out here. Standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. When this guy was first announced, I immediately shut it down. I thought, there is no way this thing is going to trump the original 1.0 501st Hot Toys clones. They're downright classics at this point. Surely they can't be beaten, right? Now that I have this guy in hand, I'm not so sure that that's the case anymore. I'm not ready to call it just yet, even though I think there is an argument to be made for this guy being the superior 501st Hot Toys clone trooper. The proportions are so darn realistic, and the changes they've made for the most part are all for the better. Up close and personal, kicking things off with the clone trooper's bucket. Dimensions-wise, it is similar to the other 501st clone. It is a new mold though, so for those thinking the helmet is reuse, it isn't, and we'll get to the reasons why in just a second. Now, you're either going to love the gloss finish or you're going to hate it. When he was first announced, I thought that it was going to be the latter for me. Now that I have him in hand, I've done a complete 180. I adore the gloss finish. It almost reminds me of Stormtrooper armor, and I think that's what they were trying to go for. That glossy Imperial plastic look, and in figure format, not only does it come across more visually interesting because of it, there's all these reflections on the surface, but it's accurate to the Kenobi series. Now, the helmet itself, like I said, is a new mold. You can still pop out the earpieces, so maybe they have plans going forward for some macro binoculars or rangefinders. The little lines are actually sculpted in rather than painted. There's some mesh added to the ports around the front, and there's even some mesh in the black sections for the mouth. The visor is a separate piece of glossy plastic inset into the mold, so there's an actual gap around it, and the gloss continues onto the black sections and the grey bits as well. The blue parts are meant to look like they're scuffed away, and there's some subtle wear and tear in certain places. I think that for the most part, that doesn't come across super well. I think they could have made the scratches look more organic. For me, they look like little squiggly lines just painted on the surface, rather than natural battle damage. I'll try my best not to miss any of the differences between the practical clones and the CGI designs. If I do miss something, let me know down in the comments below, and I apologize in advance. There's meant to be a line across this circle that's missing, and the contrasting paint, either in black or grey in the rectangle, is gone. The neck does look a bit longer than usual. That's not the case. It's not the neck that's longer, it's the chest armor that sits more flush, and it's cut lower around the back. The same thing with the sides. It's cut in more just so that the stunt performers had a greater range of motion. It is still glossy all the way around. They've added this blue panel around the back for some more visual interest, And there's some dirt and grime, some washes in the crevices, and some speckling over the top as well. The best way I can describe the changes that Disney made is they've softened everything. All of the details that need to be there still are, of course, like the sculpt work for the abs section, the comms pad, and even the little horizontal lines on the outside of the elbow pads. At the same time, everything is smoother and everything is rounder. The gloss finish, I think, adds to that too. But the reason they made these changes is if you have a stunt performer in this costume, it's already cumbersome enough with all of these individual armor pieces. The last thing you want is to inhibit their range of motion by having sharp edges that will collide, cause damage on set, delay production, and ruin the stunts. So the byproduct of that is because they made all of the changes so that this guy can move as freely as possible on set, in 1/6 scale, now we have just so much more flexibility to work with. We'll cover all that in the articulation segment. They've ditched the elastic straps that would secure these shoulder pads underneath his armpits normally, so they're just held on with Velcro. And they've added spaces between certain armor pieces so that they move a lot more freely. There's a spacer between the front and back pieces of armor. We have a spacer for the bicep piece, so that moves around too, and a spacer for the gauntlet. I love dissecting a costume like this, seeing all of the bits that they cut away and they changed from the CGI model so that a performer could actually perform in this costume. So normally this would be a diaper piece with the front crotch plate connected to the butt plate. Now it isn't. These are two separate pieces and they're held on with Velcro. So they deleted all of this plastic that would sit underneath the rubbery belt that is free floating. That means when you go and move his legs forward, these plates no longer will collide with the diaper piece. And they've flared these out so that they're not sitting as tight to the body. They've also cut away certain pieces of armor, once again for maximum range, just above the knee pad, even on this calf piece underneath the knee pad, so that it'll slot in much more easily when someone is trying to move around in this costume. The thigh plates sit lower than usual, and that means there's more of this exposed ribbed fabric material. There is some padding underneath it. I don't think that's going to get in the way when it comes to posing. We have more dirt and grime, some blue stripes on the outside of the armor, and some blue down the bottom of the knee pads, which are free floating. Then we get to the boots. Even these are a brand new mold. There's some leather grain texture around the front that wasn't present previously. They were just smooth with the last clones. And there's some sculpt work on the underside of the boots for some tread. For a quick side-by-side comparison, I'm pretty sure this is what you've all been waiting for. Sometimes there's a difference between what looks good and what looks accurate and realistic. That, I think, is what we have going on here. On the right, we've got the more stylized CGI-looking clone trooper, with the tighter fitting armor, the slimmer proportions, and he's shorter at the same time. Whereas on the left, we've got the 501st Legion clone, who's taller, the blue is brighter, and he looks like an actual dude in a suit, because this is modeled after the practical suit of armor worn on set for the Kenobi series. Some people aren't going to like that he's taller and the glossy sheen and the lighter blue, and I understand all of that. For me, I see this guy as a new jumping off point. Going forward, I would like to see more clone troopers based on these new molds. You see this? Love it. 501st Legion clone alongside Anakin. Anakin is the taller of the two. So we did see the Jedi Temple March with the practical clones in the glossy, brighter blue armor, so this is accurate to something. Not Revenge of the Sith, but something. So if you wanted to grab a bunch of these clones and recreate the Jedi Temple March with the upcoming Artisan Anakin, I don't think that's the worst idea in the world. Going over articulation, I'm expecting good things from this guy. Starting off with his helmet, it is on an articulated neck with a ball joint down below, and up underneath the bucket, there's a double ball peg. Combined, looking forward to there, looking back to there, swivel, and tons of pivot side to side. The shoulder pads being on Velcro and the chest plate being free floating means that they should tuck up underneath these rubbery straps. The arms will go up to there, going forward and back almost completely unhindered. Butterfly joint at the shoulder that hinges up and down. Swivel at the bicep, double bend at the elbow, and don't forget, if you need more range, you can tuck the strap for the elbow pad underneath the bicep armor, and then it'll go slightly further. For the wrist peg, it's a hinge and swivel. The torso can go forward and back way more than any other clone trooper. It does get gappy going back though. Swivel and pivot side to side. The legs will go forward to there on ratchets. If you do need more range, rotate the thigh armor, then you'll get a couple more clicks. Going out to there, swivel at the upper thigh. Ratcheted double bend at the knee going past 90, and because they've cut away so much of the armor for the thigh plate and the shin guard, the knee pad strap can tuck up underneath it, meaning you'll just get tons more range. And then for the ankles, a double ball peg. Good for forward and back, swivel, as well as heaps of ankle tilt. Moving on to the 3 cool and 3 annoying things. The first annoying thing doesn't really bother me, but I know it's going to probably bother some people. A lot of the armor plates are very secure. Others simply aren't. Like this chest plate, for example, it moves around all over the place. So when you pick him up, he doesn't feel quite as sturdy as their earlier attempt at a 501st clone trooper. Speak of the devil, the second annoying thing is the new 501st clone is so dramatically different compared to the original that I don't think they display well together. In fact, I'd go so far as to say they clash. Not only when it comes to the glossy finish and brighter blue for the armor, but also the proportions. The third annoying thing is some of the weathering. Not all of it. The black scratches and the dirt and grime I'm on board with. What I'm not is where it's supposed to look like the blue has been scratched away, revealing the base color of armor underneath. As you can see, the color they've gone with for those scratches doesn't even match the base color of the armor. So it quite clearly comes across as though these are just painted on white squiggles rather than battle damage. The first cool thing is they have finally made it a lot easier to get these blasters into the clone troopers' hands. Previously, the handles were thick, they were massive, they were cumbersome to work with. Now, they're a hell of a lot thinner, and popping these into his trigger finger hands is a darn sight easier than it was before with these ones. The second cool thing is that when Disney designed this suit of armor for stunt performers to move around in it, versus it being all CGI previously, they cut away certain bits of armor, and they separated parts and pieces to maximize range of motion. And the byproduct of that is when you take all of that and translate it into a 1/6 scale figure, posing this guy is so much easier than the other clones. The third cool thing is there is just so much more really fine detail work. Not just on the clone, but also for the weapons. He's got mesh in the ports around the front, mesh in his mouth area, and even these lines, they're sculpted in rather than just being painted on. Wrapping up on the 501st Legion clone trooper from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. I believe that this is a make or break moment for Hot Toys. And, of course, this new clone trooper mold. They've invested a shit ton of capital into these new molds. Everything is new. Weapons, hands, armor, even the body. The only thing that isn't is the display base. So if this guy doesn't sell and future live-action Disney series clones end up being shelf warmers, or worse yet, we don't even see any more Disney live-action clones, they've wasted all of that money. Here's the thing though, I don't think they need to worry about any of that. This guy in his own right is dope. The changes that Disney made so that actors can move in these suits on set result in a figure that can articulate much better than previous clones. The shine on the armor gives me old school Imperial Stormtrooper vibes, and the lighter blue pops. The proportions make it look like there's a real dude in a suit shrunk down to 1/6 scale, and the weapon molds are gorgeous. So at the end of this, do I think he's the new best 501st clone? It depends on what you want to represent in your collection. A cop-out answer, I know. Technically speaking, yes, the figure itself is superior. However, we don't just collect based on engineering and proportions. Source material matters most for most collectors. And at the time of filming this video, I'm pretty sure most collectors would agree that Revenge of the Sith is the more iconic piece of Star Wars media. So it's going to come down to personal preference. I was hoping these guys would be shit, honestly, because I bought 6 of the original 501st clones. Now that we know he definitively isn't, I may have to do the same for this guy. Now, I got mine at a discount from Pop Collectibles. As always, do your own research. Make sure you are comfortable before buying. I have popped the link to their site in the description below, as well as the discount code Justin's Collection for 5% off your order if you do decide to buy from them. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next video.